So, welcome, Andrew MacAskill. I've been keen to interview you for some time now, as you know, and it's great that we've finally managed to achieve that. Um, and obviously, in the field of work you're in these challenging times, you're clearly in great demand, but you've become a real thought leader on LinkedIn. So, I'll let you introduce yourself, then I'm going to ask you some key questions about what the hell's going on at the moment in this crazy world we live in, and some of the key differences maybe that you're seeing now compared to what was normal previously, maybe. So
Yeah,
if you just want to share a bit about your background, Andrew, and how you've come to do what you're doing now.
yeah, I will do. Well, firstly, thanks for having me on, Steve.
No, my
It's really
pleasure.
good to have the conversation. I know we share a lot of similar values and passions for the type of impact we want to have. So it's good to be here with
Absolutely.
you today.
Yeah.
Very quick intro on me. My career's had three stages. Started off in finance and accountancy, then had a period in executive search where I was running recruitment businesses effectively for other people. And then during that period, set up on the side the executive career jump offering. So started doing some career coaching on the sides. And long story short, we're coming up for about 12 months into full-time executive career jump work. So what we do today is help leaders understand what they want and how to get it. And we do that via digital platforms and in-person coaching. And it has changed. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Mainly, it's got tougher. That's the overwhelming trend. There's no doubt about that. It's definitely got tougher for people in transition. There's a lot more competition. I think that hiring leaders are being more and more picky as well.
Yeah.
Looking for that purple cow or the unicorn or whatever they want within their team. So that's brought an interesting dynamic. And I just think that, as you all know very well as well, I just think that people in transition now have so many more things to think about, so many different channels, different technologies, everything from ATS machines to automated interview questions. I know a lot of people are using tech in that way. So it's a bit of a minefield out there. And I know, like you, we're trying to kind of keep on top of the latest data and the latest trends so that we can continue to try and help people navigate this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great overview. Thanks, Andrew. So, just winding back to pre-lockdown, if you can think that far back. I mean, it seems like years ago now, doesn't it?
It does.
What do you think has changed specifically, though, in the 6 or 8 months or whatever it is in that time? Because obviously things have changed dramatically, as you said, in general. But since that first lockdown, which of course was an absolute body blow to so many people and a shock to the system for many of us, what do you think are the key things that have changed in terms of job hunting process, Andrew?
Well, certainly, obviously, the video interview has become a skill to learn in itself, and it definitely is a different skill to the in-person interview.
Yeah,
So that's been very prevalent. We also seen various points, and we'll see again now, a lot of the recruitment ecosystem go on furlough. So that normal channel of headhunters and recruiters, about 80% of them have been on furlough this year
really?
at various points.
Wow.
So 4 out of 5 of your little black book of recruiters haven't been available to you. So, that's been a very specific challenge around finding new routes to market. There's also been some opportunities. There is some light in amongst all of this. One major opportunity is that social media usage is up 70% because people are sat at home on their laptops rather than in internal meetings and some of the other stuff that tends to drain your time a little bit when you're running teams in an office. So our target audience is actually easier to get to in many ways because they're there. But we've also seen some unacceptable and at times predatory behavior from hiring leaders, which I see as a major problem. And we spend a lot of time trying to call out and challenge, because I think some of the more unscrupulous businesses view the oversupply of candidates in their mind, and I have, I would argue whether there is an oversupply of candidates, but that's maybe a different discussion. But they see the oversupply of candidates as an opportunity to throw out terrible employment terms or lowball offers and all of this sort of nonsense, right? Which is pure short-termism and going to damage them in the long term, but it's definitely something that job seekers need to be aware of and to have some techniques to help them navigate.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And certainly, I mean, I belong to a number of redundancy forums, and I've seen some terrible employment practices with people who are basically outplaced from their employer, where their employers aren't paying them their due notice or anything like that. So
Jeez.
I think there's a lot of employers, like you say, taking advantage of how things are at the moment. But what goes around comes around, doesn't it? So yeah,
it certainly does. It certainly does. One thing that has been good is they're seeing. I've seen a shift to people viewing available candidates as more attractive than in the past. So I've spent a lot of time in the past trying to help people almost hide their availability at the senior level because didn't want to seem like they're on the market, even if they were, and it was this kind of stealth kind of stuff. Whereas now, I don't think people want to wait 3 to 6 months for people to come and join them. I think they want impact now, because 3 months in this current environment's a long time, isn't it, Steve?
oh, lifetime, yeah.
What else have you seen change out of interest in terms of over this period? What have been the key things you've seen?
Well, I think one of the massive changes has been the shift to almost exclusively LinkedIn as the prime vehicle, not just as a job board, but from all the ways of optimizing people's networks, but in a much more tactical and arguably sophisticated way. I mean, you're much more up on this than me, Andrew, because you're leading the charge on some of this stuff. But when I see some of my connections posting out stuff on LinkedIn with video clips and doing all sorts of clever stuff, people never used to do that before, did they? So,
no.
If you like it, very clever candidates are now using LinkedIn and social media very tactically to engage an audience, and obviously within that audience could be a potential employer or a recruiter, whatever, and they're going to be seen, and then people think, oh, they look an interesting character, let's get in contact with them. So I think the whole market positioning, I suppose, is the term. I think that's changed radically. I mean, would you agree, Andrew?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, my view on LinkedIn. I think it's a huge opportunity for people. And as much as anything, Steve, it's about being front of mind.
Yeah.
So some of our clients, they maybe don't, do a post and then somebody approached them with a job. Right? It's not always as clean as that.
No.
But what might happen if they're posting consistently is somebody will be sat in a meeting in a few weeks' time and they'll say, we've got a problem around this area. And the first name they'll think of will be the person that's been showing up consistently. So it's that brand, that individual personal branding work to make sure you're the most referred candidate in your market and you're front of mind as much as anything.
Yeah.
But personal branding as a whole is just taking on a whole new life. We're involved with a business called Clout with Amelia Sordell, which we launched, and she's case in point, right? I mean, she became oversubscribed within 5 weeks without even having a website.
Hello.
So you think about that. So she's running a personal marketing agency, and she went live before we had the website live, and was oversubscribed and having to hiring other people in 5 weeks, and has also had companies, so not just individuals or business owners, like FTSE companies approaching her to help with training their execs on how to leverage the platform. So this personal branding thing, if you have been made redundant, you've got an opportunity now to really build a network and a personal brand that doesn't just help you for the next 10 weeks, but for the next 10 years. Like it's a really strategic investment, isn't it? That you can take with you from here outwards, I think. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Andrew. And I still find it remarkable. I mean, I had clients and contacts of mine, you know, and you know, we talk about all this stuff, and they say, well, no, I don't do social media, I don't do LinkedIn. So, well, you know, it's the old adage, you've got to be in it to win it. And there's still this reluctance from some very senior people. It's like they're almost they think they're too good. Their reputation should go before them, but it doesn't work that way anymore, does it, Andrew?
Sadly not. I mean, ego is the enemy of the senior job search. There's no doubt about that. And I understand the point about social media. If I'm honest, I'm not a massive fan of social media in general, which is kind of ironic since I've built a business via LinkedIn. But I kind of see LinkedIn as separate. So I'm not big on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. But LinkedIn for me is a different ball game. It's a real opportunity. And yeah, people do take a lot of persuading. I think people worry too much about what other people will think about them. Yeah. I think a lot of it's pride and ego. But if you can, and you would have done this a number of times, if you can gently help people take that step and throw them off a mount comfortable a little bit, they'll tend to enjoy the process and be surprised at how positive the response is that they receive. Like, most people are actually like, wow, I've had a few thousand views. I've had these people kind of feeding back, and I had this guy say, message me this, and you're like, yeah, that's it. That's how it works. Now, keep consistent, and that's really going to pay off for you. So I agree, though, it can be a leap for some people, but nobody's too good. There's no entitlement to big roles anymore. The old school networks don't work anymore. Like, you've got to be in the game and adapting and doing your thing.
Yeah, so that leads on beautifully, Andrew. So, I mean, in your mind, what strategies that were fairly typical job search strategies previously are no longer working? What's now being canned, if you like?
Yeah, well, I think historically, applying for jobs was the primary strategy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So applying for jobs hasn't been canned, but the power of it has definitely been diluted. And this year is absolutely case in point in that. I mean, we're getting up to 500 plus applications per role at the moment. And most of those organizations are going to actually screen in some kind of way, probably 10, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, you've got, a 1% application to interview rate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly feasible that you could apply for 50 jobs and not get a single interview.
Yeah.
And spend weeks on it. So whilst I don't think the channel's completely dead and you should ignore job adverts, I think you should be selective about what you apply for, and then make sure it's a quality application with some good cover notes, and that you're trying to network your way into the organisation and find other channels as well. What I think we've seen is that just the old, the old appointments pages in the papers as it was, and then the job boards as it became, less and less effective for people. They've become overwhelmed and commoditized as a channel. So I think it's all the other stuff that's coming in. We spoke about LinkedIn, headhunters, obviously, personal branding, networking, but also actually specifically targeting organizations. I think that's been the big new shift. So almost in a way that a business development director would map out their market and have an outreach campaign. What we're seeing is lots of people very specifically and strategically, in many ways, having a multi-touch point campaign to get in front of certain target employers. So that's how I see it evolving. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Andrew. And what you're describing there, I call that crystallizing a need, and where the vacancies aren't being advertised, and as we know, this hidden job market, which it's called, which is a mystery to a lot of people. But my take on that is the clever people, or those who work strategically, like you say, Andrew, they will see a company or an organisation they like the look of. They know they've done their research. They know there's something going on there, which would enable them to come in and add some value to that organisation, and they will target that organisation and sell themselves on that basis. And there's not a specific job role advertised. It may even be, and I've seen this time and time and again, I encourage so many people to do this. You might see job A advertised, but job A is actually maybe below the level you're looking at, or they're looking at, but it gives a feel of that organisation and what's going on there, in which case they say, well, I've seen you're advertising job A, but actually I like the sound of what's going on in your business at the moment, and I feel I can add some real value in this particular area. And I've seen a number of people in previous downturns, and obviously now is probably the worst ever, who've managed to secure some really good jobs as a result of taking that approach. So it is all about basically being very tactical, isn't it? Being very strategic.
Absolutely.
So why is it then, Andrew, that you still got this hardcore of people, do you think, who insist that they're going to spend 8 hours a day job searching, applying to every man jack job on a job board? And as much as you tell them this is not the best use of your time, this is not the most productive use of their time, they stick hard to their guns. And I mean, what's your take on that, Andrew?
Well, typically I find that's more experienced people who've found that channel has worked for them in the past. So when you've had a channel that has worked for you in the past, it's harder to accept that there are new ways and that you need to adapt. So I think that's part of it. Probably it's worked for them in the past. Two, it's just, it feels busy.
Yeah.
And people, I'm not going to say busy full, because that would be disrespectful. It's not a complete waste of time, but part of it is just when you're out of work, it feels like you're doing stuff. You feel like you're taking action. Yeah. And it's kind of comfortable. It's not a contact sport, is it? Applying for roles. You're behind a computer. If you get rejected, you don't feel like you've been personally rejected. You can blame the process if nothing happens. So you really, we call it being hooked on hopium, which is an extremely addictive substance, isn't it, Steve? With people in transition, this hopium drug, which is, well, yeah, if I throw enough hope, hopefully something will stick.
Yeah.
But as in business, hope's not a great strategy. You need to have a little bit more than that. But
yeah. No,
I think it's all that stuff.
I couldn't agree more. So if you had to pick the top 3 strategies that are working for people at the moment, and we're talking really professionals and executives, what would you say are the 3 things that are working better than anything else at the moment, Andrew?
Well, certainly producing LinkedIn content is the number one.
Right. And by that you mean, regular posting.
Correct. So
being visible.
Publishing articles, posting, leaving comments on other relevant posts where you demonstrate your capability and understanding, championing causes, providing your commentary on your marketplace so that you're seen as an authority, all of that stuff. So, that particular part of the playbook, in terms of, we've had a few hundred people in our ecosystem receive jobs so far this year, and over 50% of them have come from LinkedIn, either through being approached on LinkedIn or from content or being front of mind, all that stuff we spoke about. So it's by far the best performing channel. The headhunter channel is also a relatively good performing channel now, but wasn't during the last lockdown because of the furlough. But it's also the network bit. So the third bit, if you look at the data we've got, it's stuff coming from people's network. And the approach that we advocate, which is really performing well for people, is rather than approaching your network and just throwing your CV over and saying, have you got any jobs, mate? Which is what 95% of people do.
Give us a job approach.
Yeah, give us a job, mate. Yeah, it's the and it doesn't feel good. It's kind of the cap in hand stuff. It's just not the right level of positioning. The best way to leverage opportunities from your network is to find a way to add value, which sounds kind of trite, but the more you add value to senior people, the more the reciprocity kicks in.
Yeah.
And people don't like feeling indebted to you. So if you, out of nowhere, go after someone in your network and say, by the way, mate, I've just done a quick review of your website. Here are my 5 biggest recommendations in terms of how you could get more customers to take action. That's yours, like, without any expectation.
Yeah.
they will automatically try and find a way of adding value back to you. Reciprocity. It is the law of the senior ecosystem is advocacy and reciprocity. So that's the other channel that performs very well at a senior level, and where you sometimes get people creating opportunities, consulting stuff, whatever it might be. So I think it's a mix of those three. I think LinkedIn is the primary. If you do one thing, do that. But also getting really good relationships with headhunters and finding a way to add value to people in your network to stay front of mind and to drive reciprocity. If you're doing those three channels, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah. Now, no, I couldn't agree more, Andrew. So that sort of links to question I was asked on a webinar yesterday, and I've seen examples coming up on some of your posts about, in this current crazy, challenging climate, how able, if that's the right word, do you feel people are to negotiate the deal they're looking for in terms of when they're offered a position? How able can they negotiate the salary up? What's your experience of that at the moment?
Well, it's under pressure at the moment to the tune of about 15 to 20% by the looks of it, if we were to judge the offers that we're seeing. So 15 to 20% down, I would say, year on year in terms of the offers, roughly. Varies by sector and things, but that kind of order. How the biggest way to protect yourself against that kind of issue and to maximize your salary is to know what the monetary size of the prize is if your role is successful. So if somewhere in the process you're asking what does success look like for this role, and you get them to actually put a number on it. So if they say, oh, we would have saved £2 million in efficiencies over the next 12 months, or we would have grown by, 65 million in Europe, or whatever it might be, right? Then when it comes to negotiate, that's the number you want to put back on the table. Because an extra 10, 15, 20K in the context of delivering the types of numbers we've just discussed from an outcome perspective kind of drops in the ocean, and it's a much stronger negotiating position to talk ROI and to reframe your salary as an investment rather than a cost.
Yeah, I mean, my answer to that question, what it was yesterday anyway, was I think you need to know if you are coming from a position of strength, and if you are, and it's very obvious that the company or organisation are chasing your tail because they really value you as the top candidate, then you clearly are in a much better position than being in the pack. And obviously that's the challenge, is to know whether you really are the top dog. Now I know that's where headhunters come in and are very helpful, because they'd probably be able to tell you that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's part of the brokering, isn't it?
Absolutely. But if you're dealing direct with the employer, it's not so obvious. So again, my take on that, it goes back to what we just talked about a minute ago. It's back to adding value. If you can demonstrate how you can add value to that particular organisation in whatever shape or form that means, then you've got a much better chance of being able to negotiate the salary you want. But clearly, there's no scope in this climate for being absolutely crazy in terms of your demands. It's not going to happen, is it?
No, it's not. And there are good people out there. And what some people are doing is the classic kind of booking a review after 6 months, for example. So maybe going in slightly less, but booking the review for 6 months when all this madness is hopefully blown over, or into the new financial year, and you're coming in from a position of strength with some delivery and value already on the table. Or you can over negotiate a lot harder on the variable components.
Yeah.
So where you get a bit of a different share of risk and reward, whereby you say, okay, well, I'll drop my salary by 20K, but I want my bonus potential to go up by 20K based on deliverables. And that will tend to feel a bit more palatable for the hiring leader, because they only pay it out if they win. So I think they're the other two mechanisms, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It all comes down to value, doesn't it? That's that at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. So now, in terms of your own business, I mean, obviously this year, as we say, it's been totally crazy. But you now were proudly boasting the other day that you have 60,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is
Boasting's a tough word, Steve.
maybe that's a bit strong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's go with humbly sharing rather than proudly boasting.
but that is some feat from, you know, what was your start position a few months ago?
Well, it took me 5 years to get 12,000, and then I've gone from 12,000 to 60,000 in the last 12 months. So
Wow, that's
it's been that
incredible.
kind of hockey stick type build up.
Yeah. What do you attribute that to?
Oh, sheer brilliance.
Yeah, I was going to say, other than the fact you're totally brilliant, but yeah.
Yeah. No, it's sadly not sheer brilliance. I wish it was. I wish it had been that easy. So it's quality times quantity, which is the formula for everything. But number of core components. I've been a lot more deliberate over the last 12 months. So I've actually got a content plan based around some key pillars, some consistency around the execution. And like anything, if that consistency, that quality times quantity breeds it. I've also managed to, as much as possible, try and pay in to the ecosystem more than I take out. So of course, I'm occasionally putting up calls to action and more salesy type posts. I've done one this morning about, trying to attracting new clients and things. But in terms of how it's skewed, most of my posts are pure value add rather than direct sale, and I think that's a good way to go. But I also think I'm posting right now. I think what's happened, right audience, right time as well, for sure. You have to accept there's been some really fortunate timing for us going all in December, and then by March, record low unemployment when we started changing pretty quickly. So you have to accept that. But what I hear back from people, and the feedback that I value the most, and what I think has been the biggest thing, is that I'm posting on stuff that's really important to me. So rather than, and this is the joy of being able to align your mission with your business, right? You chose to do that some time ago. I'm now in my first year of doing that. And that's just such a gift to be in a position where you can align a purpose you genuinely care about with something that can also sustain you and grow a business. And I think that comes through, but like my passion for what I'm doing, I think, is coming through in my posts in a way it hasn't historically, because whilst I was active on the platform, it was the mission never felt like this mission feels like it.
Yeah.
The impact of what I was putting out there wasn't the same. And I think people can sniff out inauthenticity. And hopefully the feedback I get and why I think the following is growing is because I think people can tell that I mean it.
Yeah. Well, that fits beautifully with one of my favourite quotes, which I feature in many of my books and content and so on. It's sort of it goes sort of along the lines of, when who you are aligns with what you do, you can achieve extraordinary results.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
To me, it's about being authentic, and I love your posts. And but what about this? Because you developed this sort of lunchtime live
broadcast.
Yeah. I mean, remind me when that started, Andrew.
So I applied for a LinkedIn Live license in February. I was told about it by a friend who had already started using it. And she said, yeah, this is a really cool thing. And I was like, yeah, fine, well, I'll apply for it. And I've received it. And then I didn't do anything with it for a few weeks. And then when the lockdown was announced, I thought, well, I felt like we all had a responsibility to work out, right, how can everyone do their bit here? Yeah, some people were volunteering for the NHS. Brilliant. I loved to see that. Others were delivering food parcels, offering free service. Everybody kicked in. And I think the whole challenge of 2020 has brought out both the best and the worst in community, but overwhelmingly there's been more best than worst. I think personally, maybe I'm an old romantic, I don't know yet, but I do believe that. Anyway, so my view was, well, look, I can't just sit here without at least trying to add some value to what's going on. And so I went live week 1 on the lockdown. that's when I went live. So in March, whenever that was, broadcasted out, about 30 people joined or something. And it was just, right, well, just ask, whatever's on your mind, whatever's hurting your job search at the moment, drop it in the comments, and we'll try and give you a bit of advice, a bit of clarity, help you with a bit of confidence, and also connect you with other people that are going through the same thing. And again, showing up every Thursday and doing that over time, it's kind of built into this mini movement, really. I mean, it's gone way bigger than I ever expected it to be, and it's been accredited with over 120 people receiving jobs. They accredit those sessions as giving them some advice that help do that. We've had 280, 290 people on numerous times, still haven't hit the 300 who've come on live, and typically get 5,000 to 6,000 watchers after the event as well. So it's been a real privilege to do it. I really enjoy it every week, and hopefully it continues to grow.
I mean, it's almost like cult status now, isn't it, Andrew?
Oh, I don't think we're quite there, mate. I don't think we're quite there. But it's been a really rewarding activity, and I was advised against it by so many business people that care about me. I was advised against it.
Why?
Don't share your stuff. It will undervalue your paid services. Other people will steal your stuff. Like that whole scarcity mindset. I had so many people say to me, "What are you doing?" But the good thing about running your own business and linking who you are to what you do is, well, if it makes sense to you, you can do it, can't you? Like, yeah. I'm only accountable to the man in the glass, really. So if that makes sense to me, I'm going to go do it. So we did. Screw them, and I'm glad we did.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason I reignited my LinkedIn Winning Through group. Because I felt that was one way of doing my bit, and this interview will be.
And you've been regularly helping contribute to the discussions, and it's been really appreciated for me that you've dived into some of these posts that I've done that have gone my mind and added some additional value and built on the thoughts, because I believe everybody in our profession should be doing that.
Absolutely.
It's you've got the skills, you've got the knowledge. It's wrong not to be using that particularly.
I think that begs an interesting question, which sort of just come to mind when you said that, Andrew, because I know we've talked about this out of this interview, but I've always been a firm believer that, collaboration is a great way to do business. And yet there's so many people like us, different business owners, who are so defensive, and they wouldn't engage in such posts because they'd see that they're almost fighting your corner rather than their own. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, I think I used to be like that, right? So I would have, the competition with the enemy, and you needed that worthy opponent to drive you and the team on many times. And it was you against the world, and you create that kind of siege mentality. I've led teams in that way. What I now know is you only lead teams in that way if you don't have a mission. Because when your mission becomes about the competition, it means you don't have an intrinsic purpose. So a career coach who isn't actively contributing on other career coaches' stuff or paying into the ecosystem is in it to make money rather than because they want to make money whilst also helping and having an impact and caring about the purpose. It's as straightforward as that.
Yeah.
Because to make the enemy out of other people is because the mission's not internal. Whereas for me, and it took a while, like I'll be very honest, like, my mission when I wrote it down was to help end job search misery, right? That's my punchy, that's my North Star, right?
Yeah.
So, and what that means is that anything that contributes to that's what I do. It can't be about competition. So, I've helped Gary Wills, who set up the furloughed group, a few times. Yeah. So he's, got this amazing group for people on furlough, and he helps job seekers and stuff in there. And I've been a speaker and helped him behind the scenes, and we collaborate together. He's a good friend of mine. Really like what he's doing. But there's no doubt that, some people will choose to be a free member of what he's doing rather than subscribe to what I'm doing. Right? There's no doubt I've helped contribute to that, but it doesn't matter, because the mission's to end job search misery, and the longer term gain. What I know, if I want Career Jump to maximize its potential, and what I'm doing, and my career to maximize its impact, the longer term gain is that particular purpose. And I believe all the business success will follow in the longer term anyway if you keep doing the right things in the short term. So yeah, that's the way I see it. What's the quote? Losers focus on winners, winners focus on winning, right? And I really believe in that. If people who are so hepped up about other people in their space that they can't even collaborate with them, suggest that they're not in the right space.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Andrew. Okay, I've got a couple of more questions for you. One of them, just to share with the audience in terms of how or why you decided to develop your membership model.
Well, two reasons. From a mission point of view, it gets more impact out to more people. So I guess, the membership model is the new book in many ways. So your book is a low entry point for people to hear some of your expertise and to help them make a change that benefits them. Yeah. And where I got to was fairly quickly, I was able to sell my time. Yeah. But that's not scalable. And so if your goal is to end job search misery, you need a scalable model. And that's what makes sense, is this kind of membership thing. Also, from a business point of view, it's annuity revenue as well, albeit it's a strange annuity model because success for me is for when people cancel. So in most subscription models, you're looking at lifetime value and trying to keep them hanging on as long as possible and avoid drop off. Whereas I'm like, every time I get a cancellation, that's a success. But there's no doubt, as I say, in the mix of everything that's going on with the business, it provides an income whilst also allowing us to impact more people in a more scalable way. And we're going to be looking to build out more and more these channels, because I need to make executive career jump about the business and not about me spending time with people. It needs to be bigger than that for it to be really impactful. So so that was why.
Yeah, oh, brilliant. Okay, final question for you, $64,000 question.
Do I get that? Do I get that if I get it right?
And it's not about who's going to win the US election.
Oh, geez, yeah, we'll see on that.
I mean, this is a very open question, Andrew, but what on earth do you see as the future over the next year in terms of the employment market?
We spoke about this a little bit beforehand. I see more and more leaning towards portfolio style careers rather than just one person doing a job for one employer. As an overall trend, I'm absolutely aligned with you on that thought process, that people will unbundle their time, that they'll double down on their strengths rather than working on their weaknesses. They'll become very good at something and they'll provide that very good to a number of different businesses rather than just one. I also think what's going to be an interesting trend, it's starting to happen already, is people retraining and pivoting, which seems to be the word at the moment, later in their career. So as the retirement age continues to go up, as the state pension continues to go down, and that dynamic, for future generations is a tricky one. So retirement age and life expectancy going up, pension age going, pension pot going down, state pensions disappearing. I think it's perfectly feasible that you could see somebody in their 50s who's been an accountant training to be a doctor and then having 20 years as a doctor. Do you know what I mean? So I think we'll see far more regular career transitions, and I think we'll see far more portfolio style situations where people, rather than just doing a job, they create the work that they love in a way that serves the rest of their life as well. And I hope both of those things end up becoming true, because I think they're both very positive.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're right, because I got a really good book about that.
Oh, here we go. Link will be links in the comments below. Yeah, there you go. Lovely.
Careers have to work for passion, pleasure, and profit. Yeah.
Passion, pleasure, and profit. There you go. Yeah.
But it's the 3 Ps, as I call it. But yes, I'm inclined to agree with you, Andrew, that the one job and also one type of work, self-employed paradigm, is basically broken. I think, the COVID crisis has proven that beyond any reasonable doubt, if there was any doubt before. But I think what's interesting is that it's now people of all ages, from young people to people who, you know, way past retirement or previous considered retirement age, who are embracing this portfolio way of working, which I think is fabulous.
Well, I've kind of landed there at 40, right? So I'm a mid-career, I guess you could say, and already in a portfolio scenario with executive career jump, with clout, with the career coaching consultancy I'm involved with. I'm an advisor to a couple of headhunters. Like, so by not through design at all, I've managed to. I feel I'm on the right track with that, and hitting your 3 Ps to some extent.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a question for you. One thing that's not bothering me, but is concerning me at the moment is with this working from home trend, yeah, which has both pros and cons. Like, we don't need to debate that. I think it's clear what the pros and cons are. And some people are going for the hybrid model, which is a bit of both. And I can see the argument for that as well. But what I have a concern about, and what I think people need to protect themselves against from a career perspective is, you know, basically us seeing in the white collar world the same thing that happened previously in the manufacturing world. So what happened in the manufacturing world is we offshored a lot of our manufacturing to places where we could get stuff made cheaper to increase our profit margin. Now, my concern at the moment is if everybody seems to be saying, oh, we love this working from home, this is great, this is working for us. But at what point does it come to whereby the big companies say, well, why am I paying an FD 100 grand in High Wycombe when I can pay them 40 grand in Krakow? Like, at what point does the white collar market go the same way as the manufacturing market if we continue to drive this fully remote thought process? What do you think about those dynamics? What's your thoughts on that?
That's a big question, Andrew.
Yeah, I feel like we need a glass of red wine to really.
I've only got water, I'm afraid.
Yeah, same.
I'll answer that. I'm going to cheat because I'm going to answer it in a different way. I saw something recently where a senior professional in the UK was successful in a job which would have normally gone to somebody based in Sydney, Australia. Why did they get it? They got it because on paper, or in theory, or practically, they were the best person for the job based on the fact that everybody was working virtually. So it actually worked the other way round. They ended up getting a much better job than they would have previously expected.
Well, that's positive.
Yeah.
So it opens up a global market, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that I would put a positive spin on that. The only downside the downside to that is they won't be spending their time on the beaches in Sydney. But you know, hey, yeah. Anyway, it's been absolutely great talking with you, Andrew. Absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for your time and your insight. And I wish you every success with you know, your ventures, especially in your portfolio world now. And I have a little. I'm not a gambling man, but I wouldn't mind betting that you're going to have 100,000 followers in the not too distant future, maybe by the end of this year.
Well, I really appreciate the well wishes, and thanks again for having me on. It's been great to chat.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Cheers, Steve.
Okay, all the best.